and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I did forget that. Moment of silence for prayer, please. Thank you.
Alderman Wawa,
Here.
Alderman Calhoun,
Here.
Alderman Fire,
Here.
Alderman Bliss, Alderman Whitmer will be late, and Alderman Damon asked to be excused. And the Alderman Kutai, here.
Yes, I'm here. Telephonic meeting, participation request, none.
And the meeting has been properly posted and noticed several times over.
And Sean, can we get the motion for number 4?
I'll make a motion to suspend the election of council president until Don Brickner is present this evening.
Second.
So the proper motion is to suspend the agenda to the public hearing.
Correct.
I would like to correct my motion to suspend the agenda to public hearing.
I concur.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Public hearing, project number 2-2022. Public hearing on special assessments for public improvements project 2-2022. Asphalt pavement, concrete curb and gutter, concrete sidewalk, carriage walk, grading, landscaping, and related work in East St. Francis Avenue from a point approximately 110 feet east of the railroad tracks to South KK Avenue. And I see we have 2 people that would like to speak. El Buddha first. Paul?
That's up to the council. Certainly, in the past, we've done it both ways. The engineer wants to make a statement that. Is it easier for you to speak set the time?
Okay. Good point, Steve. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. I am Melinda Diesky, and I'm the City Engineering Director of Public Works for the City of St. Francis. Also, from the Engineering Department tonight, Hunter Lang, our project engineer, is here, and he is going to be the main project manager from the department overseeing this project. So tonight we are here to hear comments from the public after the presentation about the resurfacing of East St. Francis Avenue from a point about 100 feet east of the railroad tracks all the way to South Kinnickinnick Avenue. This section of St. Francis Avenue has been on the 5-year capital plan for over 5 years, but it has been moved down and over that time because other roads have degraded faster than St. Francis Avenue, so other projects have come up before it. But if we, the road is at a point tonight or today now where if we can have the work done now, we are going to be able to just continue to do the resurfacing rather than do a full reconstruct. So we have a few pictures here on the smartboard about kind of demonstrating why and the kind of the things we look for when we look for a resurfacing project. We have St. Francis Avenue looking west, St. Francis Avenue looking east. You can see all the cracking that is in there. Here's a typical section of St. Francis Avenue, the alligator cracking, the repairs that have been done, settlement with some ponding that also will ice. Here's a driveway approach that's degrading. We have some curb missing over here. We have some heaved sidewalk, which is, that's an extreme case, but definitely heave there. Again, some curb head missing. You can see the cracked pavement, and that's, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But those are just some examples of what the pavement looks like. So, as you may know, East St. Francis Avenue is actually a concrete road that is overlaid with asphalt. They did that asphalt overlay in 1983. And so our proposed project is to mill off all the existing asphalt on the road, leave the concrete pavement in place, do any repairs to that concrete that may be needed, remove all the curb and gutter along both sides, raise that up a little bit so that when we put the asphalt back on, we reestablish the crown of the road. We have the curb up where it'll drain better, and basically reshape the road. It's the same process that we did, the same design that we did west of the railroad tracks back in 2006. As part of the project, then, we will also replace all the driveway approaches because the curb and gutter is coming up, the driveway approaches get redone. We're also doing spot repairs of sidewalk, and we are going to be redoing the terraces in either sod or asphalt or concrete, whatever they are today. Although property owners would have the option, if they would want a paved terrace to be turned into sod, we could do that and accommodate that. So we can talk about that after the meeting, or you can contact the engineering office about that if the project moves forward. The majority of the trees will also be removed along this stretch of road. As we saw with the heaving sidewalks, some of the trees are too big for the terrace now, and so we're going to be removing those. We'll be making determinations after the project is all done, whether trees should be replanted in those areas, or if we should forego trees, especially if there's a lot of overhead wires or the terrace is very narrow. The project is proposed to be done under traffic as much as possible. However, there may be times where the street is closed for a short time or for part of a day to facilitate construction. But we'll try to give everybody as much notice as possible when those things occur. As you all are also aware, this project has a special assessment associated with it, and that is by city code. We calculated the assessments based on the frontage foot of the properties that abut St. Francis Avenue. Because this is a resurfacing project, the city pays for all the asphalt pavement on the street, and so the parts of the project that were special assessed to the properties were the curb and gutter, the sidewalk, the driveway approaches, and the terrace repairs. Corner lots are assessed from both streets. However, if it's a residential property, there's a 50% reduction on the sidewalk and the curb and gutter costs. Business properties, if they're a corner property, receive a 30-foot credit reduction in the frontage on the long side of the lot. So it depends on which side of the property is on St. Francis Avenue, whether that credit was assessed or not. These numbers that we have calculated are very conservative. We try to estimate higher than what we think the bids are going to come in at. So we hope that the bids come in less, but there's no guarantee. But this would be the maximum amount that the city would special assess unless we were to hold a new public hearing if the project were to move forward. The other important thing to note is that there is a payment plan for the special assessments. The city allows a 10-year repayment period with simple interest on the unpaid balance. The city charges a 0.5% above the prime rate. And then if a residential property owner qualifies for the homestead credit, we actually extend that payback period to 15 years. Some people may be wondering about the federal infrastructure bill and if this road would have qualified for funding for that. We did look into that, but this road would not have scored high enough in the ranking that is done through the approval process at the state to be eligible. Although we were able to secure a very small grant for this road, and that's something that we will assess at the end of the project. So everybody will see some credit from that grant. It's between $25,000 and $30,000, and I know that's not a lot, but it's better than nothing, I guess. The project is currently in the bidding process. The bids, we're going to open them next week, and if the bids, the project is approved, then the project would move forward in June. We expect the construction to take around 6 weeks, and again, the road may be closed at times, but we're going to try to do it as much under traffic as possible. And again, we will communicate with all the property owners as much as we can to facilitate everybody getting in and out along the project. When we do the project, if it goes forward, we do have an on-site inspector, and then from R.A. Smith, who is the design engineer for the project. But our department, Hunter specifically, will be working with them on a daily basis to make sure that the project is being done to our standards, to go over the project. I mean, if there's any concerns that have been brought forward by property owners or residents, we work through that. The engineering department is very hands-on during this process. We will also make sure that we send out a letter to all the property owners ahead of the project if it moves forward, and give a lot more information once we have, who the inspector is and the exact time frame of when the contractor would start. The engineering department is always here to help residents and property owners navigate this process and answer questions and just try to be available for any concerns that anybody may have. So the purpose of the public hearing tonight is really for the common council to hear all the concerns of all the property owners and interested parties. If you have a comment, even if you didn't sign up and you decide you want to speak, the mayor will call on you. And no decision tonight, though, is going to be made on the project. The common council will hear you and consider your comments, and then make a decision at the next common council meeting, which is the first Tuesday in May. And then we will also have the bids ready for approval if the council decides to move forward with the project. And with that, unless the common council has any questions, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you. Can you stay there in case they have any questions for you? Al? Just state your full name and your address, please. Both. No, just one.
Name is Al Muda. I have two addresses. One used to be a business. The other one is now the residence. 3570 South Ellen Street, St. Francis. Two of my questions were already answered. I was looking to find out when we were looking to start this and when we were looking to complete it. Both of those were answered. The only other question I have, and I'm looking forward to having some curbs out front, is have we checked with the other utilities who have a tendency to come in after a road is finished and pop holes in it, namely water, sewer, gas? Have we looked into this at all? Is this all?
We coordinate with the utilities before we construct, so if any utility, we haven't been notified of any work by any other utility, so.
No?
But we always coordinate with them ahead of time, and we will facilitate if they have to get in there before we finish the road.
Would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Also, if it's concrete and somebody does have to get into the road, they have to replace the entire section. They can't just go and cut a two-foot wide strip down the middle of the road. They have to replace the entire concrete section.
Okay, but then the asphalt gets a little funky. Okay,
Thank you, sir. Tim Raymond? Please state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Sure. Tim Raymond. I have the property at 2311 East St. Francis. Most of my questions have been answered, but I do have just a few. So the Common Council is the body that's going to be approving or denying the project?
Correct.
And then what requires the project to move forward? Just by the majority of vote for the Common Council?
Correct. If it gets passed by the council, 4-2, or it's a 3-3 tie, then I get to vote. And that's how it moves forward or does not move forward.
Okay, all right. And then what portion of our property taxes are set aside or allocated towards projects like this?
Mark or Ann? Paul? Mark?
So the way it works for road projects in the city of St. Francis is it comes out of the capital budget. So it's not an operations expense. It doesn't come per se out of the mill rate that people pay on taxes. So each project is a standalone project that then is covered through the capital budget and especially assessed back to the property owners for their cost of the project. So if the city picks up a portion of it, comes out of the capital budget, and if a portion of it is specially assessed, then the property owners repay that amount back to the city, and it goes back into the capital project for the next project.
And is the capital funding done on an annual basis?
Yes, we have a 5-year capital plan for road projects within the city of St. Francis that's approved by the Common Council.
Okay, all right. And then one of my other questions was about the trees, because the trees along that stretch of road are obviously causing some of the sidewalk issues. I think we can all agree to that. So the previous owner of this property did bring this up. I'm not sure where or to whom, but it was brought up I don't know if it was in a previous meeting or with a previous person about the trees causing the heaving of the sidewalks, so creating a very unsafe condition. And there was no action or nothing really became of it. And I was just wondering if there'd be some consideration made in regards to the heaving of the sidewalks when allocating the costs for this project.
As I discussed with Mr. Raymond when he came in earlier, I don't necessarily recall any conversation, but we could have had a conversation with the previous owner. The city's kind of policy has been to not cut down a healthy tree unless it's been directed by the Common Council or somehow it's found to be a hazard. And I would have directed the property owner at that time to contact their elderly person and bring it forward, so the Common Council would have directed us to take down a healthy tree. So, and that hadn't happened, so the tree remained. It's really up to this body whether they would want to consider any kind of credit. We have not in the past credited anybody for sidewalk eaves for tree roots. So, but that's really up to the council, and I don't think you have to make that decision tonight.
So Melinda, for example, in the picture there, so that asphalt was added by the city to correct the unlevel sidewalk to make it a more smooth surface.
There was no trip point.
Correct. So there was action taken.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's fair to say, but there is, it is quite a large hump, and obviously, this is a course of time, and with the tree growing and with the roots growing, obviously causing this issue. So yes, you are correct. There was some action taken to make the problem better, but it wasn't rectified to the point where it's, considered safe for walking, because it's still a very large incline and it's still very dangerous coming from both directions. So I've observed people walking on that sidewalk for the period of time I've owned the property, and I still seen people stumble and trip, and so I've seen it firsthand. So that's why I feel it is a hazard, and I understand with this project this is going to be rectified now, and I understand about 5-year plans and we all have to plan and everything, but I just wanted some consideration in regards to when the costs get allocated, when the final numbers come about, that be considered, because it was brought to the attention of either the common council or the engineering department in the past. And yes, some things have been done to it, but, you know, obviously it's not the best solution, you know, and I understand about not taking down healthy trees, but it has lost quite a few limbs throughout the course of the years. But again, I understand it's a low priority, I get all that, but when it comes to the safety of the public, it is a concern.
Actually, I don't feel as though this is a low priority. My memory serves me correctly, Melinda, in all the time that I've been here, I think we've removed one healthy tree. Other than that, we haven't done that. As far as my opinion in giving somebody a credit for a sidewalk that had a tree, for a tree that was planted, that tree wasn't planted by the city of St. Francis. That tree was planted by the town of Lake when they first put the city. So, I mean, it's not actually the responsibility of the city, and the city is not going to go and tear up sidewalks until they're going to refix the road. That's why they put the blacktop on it. It's done all throughout the city, and that's all I have.
Anything else, sir?
And you answered that question. She answered that question about the grant, offsetting the cost of the project. And when will the actual cost for the projects be known? Is that the first Tuesday in May? Is that kind of when all the quotes would be coming in for the actual bids?
The bids, we open the bids next week, Wednesday, right, Hunter? Yeah. So, and that is a public bid opening, and anybody is able to attend and hear the numbers right away. Otherwise, they will be presented to the common council on the first Tuesday in May.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this public hearing?
My name's Robert Peter, and I'm at 2408 East St. Francis Avenue. So I'm curious about that tree thing that he just talked about. So are they going to take that tree out or not?
We are going to take the tree out. It's beyond its useful life at this point, and to facilitate the curb removal and to fix that sidewalk, we do have to take it out. So it's not as healthy as a tree as it was when several years ago.
So I'm wondering if you have, what type of plan you have for, like, any type of environmental aspect of taking that tree out and replacing it with another one or two or something like that. Is that things the city considers?
We look at, when we look at replacing trees, the size of the terrace, overhead wires, sewer laterals, water laterals, proximity to streetlights, proximity to crosswalks, proximity to driveways. So there's actually a number of things to consider when we replant trees. So those are all things that we will look at when we look at St. Francis Avenue and see where we can reinstall trees along there. We will not, trees are not part of the paving project. They come the following year. We want it to winter. We want, if any settlements is going to happen, we want that to happen, and then we would look at planting trees the following year.
Are all hybrids, so we're not planting huge trees in the terrace that bust up the sidewalk.
Exactly, I was going to say the same thing. They're very careful about their tree selection now. The trunks aren't as big, the root base isn't as wide. They make much better choices, and that's something Melinda and her team have done in recent years.
Okay, that's great. So in terms of the drainage from having cement from the sidewalk to the curb, I'm not sure what the city would rather have. And I know, and I think I heard that you could have either grass or concrete. And
yeah, you can choose. We've actually in the bid we've had an alternate bid, so we would have a price for additional sod on the project people chose to have sod instead of concrete.
And when you're doing the entire roadway, so are all, so some, it seemed like in the plan that some of the curb was like, the really bad parts were torn out, and then it seemed like there were some spots, maybe I didn't know how to read it, but there were some spots that would just be, that are they're in good shape, that they would just be added along with the new curb.
This project,
The entire road that's gonna be done.
all the curb and gutter along this entire section is being removed and replaced.
Okay.
And we're gonna raise it up a little bit and create, so we can recreate that profile, the crown in the road, and get the water to sheet off into the curb and gutter.
So it's a nice continuous look all the way
Yes.
down. Okay, so then in front of my place, and in a couple spots, there's like Wisconsin electric poles that look like they're trees from, I don't know, you know, a long time ago. And it seems like to do all that work and then yet have these things that kind of are basically like trees that are about to rot. What's the city's position on that, and how can, you know, doing all that work and yet having them come in and ultimately, possibly, and more than likely, have to tear up that concrete and put in new poles? There must be maybe some situation that the city would let We Energies know that this is happening, and then there might be some, you know, modern poles that are not going to fall over in our new developed area.
Sure. So we do coordinate with We Energies, and if they feel that they need to do pole replacements, they'll do that right along with the work that we do. So we coordinate and we work with them to get them in and get their work done in the right sequence, along with the removals and the replacements of the curb and the pavements and the sidewalk. So it's not the city's decision on whether those poles get replaced, it's really We Energies' decision. But we do contact them, we send them our plans, and we notify them, and then they let us know what they're going to do. We can ask. Usually if we ask, they will charge us. So if they decide, it's at their cost. If we decide, it becomes the city's cost. So, but that's something we can find out and before the meeting in May, and have that information for the council as part of the decision process.
And also, if I heard you correctly, if it's a business, you're charged twice as much as the residents for the special assessment?
No, I'm sorry if I said that poorly. On corner properties, if you're a business, there's only a 30-foot credit per ordinance. If you are a residential property on a corner, then you get a 50% credit on each road. And that, again, is by city ordinance, so.
Okay, so a business is not paying twice as much?
No,
for the
oh, no,
curb.
no, no, no,
Okay.
no.
Thank you.
Clarify, if somebody has concrete or pavers out in front of there in the terrace, the bid is gonna come in, they'll put all concrete in there, the homeowner or business is gonna pay for that, correct?
Correct.
Decide they don't want that, and they just wanna put grass in there. then
We'll put grass,
We have a cost estimate for the grass as well.
right, and it would reduce the cost of the special assessment. And that's why, when Hunter and I were talking about this project, that was something we thought we should bring forward and have bid out, was that process.
Sir, can you please come up here? Thank you.
Melinda, while he's coming
State
up
your name
there,
and your address, please.
if it's grass, do they have the option of converting to concrete?
They could convert to concrete, but it's going to increase their costs, and they would need to sign a waiver for the costs.
St. Francis has been very responsive about providing Japanese lilac in front of our home. That was wonderful. And I'm wondering what's going to happen to that tree and the rest of the terrace. We had a special dispensation for the area right next to our driveway to differentiate it from
Right. Right. So what
cut up or
we are going to do the tree we will save, and your plantings we will save as much as we can, but we do have to replace the driveway. So if you have some plants in there that maybe you want special care for, we can, let you know when we're going to be doing that removal, and you could pull them out, save them, and then we would let you put them back.
okay.
Because you did have the permit. I remember you had the permit for the special plantings, so. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
So I have a question about when John said special planting. Does that mean if you have grass there, or like in front of my place, I've got those 3 big discs, open discs that were ginkgos in it, and they're gone. And so we planted with things. And so if there's grass there, what are you allowed to plant, and what are you allowed to plant or not?
By ordinance, it's turf grass unless you apply for a special permit to plant something else. And that goes before the planning commission, if I remember correctly, and then they would give you permission to do that.
And so what does that allow you to plant at that point? Like a shrub or a tree or bushes or
More like a native,
floral?
more like a native planting, but it can't be too tall because you can't block the vision corner of the driveways or the street. So it's got to be less than 2 feet. It can't be too wide, so it overhangs and blocks passage on the sidewalk or passage in the street. So it's, we don't dictate what specific plants you can plant, but those are kind of the guidelines that you would look at, that we would look at when you propose what you envision doing.
So if I, let's say, put in or wanted to put in a Japanese lilac,
So that's
not a small tree.
no, and that would be something the city we would plant. We do try to plant Japanese lilacs around the city, so we would look at that property and see if it's appropriate for that type of tree, and we could work with that and see if we could get one installed there.
Okay.
Right, for yours is a, yep. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone else that would like to speak at this public hearing? Public hearing is closed. Presentation, none.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to resume the agenda as planned this evening.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you for everyone coming.
Is this something we have to do this tonight, or is this?
Yeah, I just asked Paul, we have to,
Oh, yeah.
yes. And Matt can't be on the phone for it because it's all secret ballot.
That being said, we will hold the election of council president. I will pass out ballots. All of your names are on them. Please put a check mark in front of who you choose to vote for. Hold them up. I will select them. And I will then tally the votes with all of you present.
AC/DC, Highway to Hell? Or the one from Iron Man that they use, Shoot to Thrill?
The ballots are one vote for Alderman Don Berkner, Sean Fire, Donald Berkner, Sean Fire. 3 votes for Sean Fire, 2 votes for Alderman Berkner.
We don't need anything else for that, correct?
The only thing you have to do is a motion to destroy the ballots.
Can I get that motion, please?
I'll second.
All in favor? All opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on, citizens' comments, none. Consent agenda. Is there any item that an older person would like removed from this?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Recommendation of action from committees, commissions, and boards. Action to be taken from the licensing committee meeting held April 19th, 2022. Steve?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the beverage operator license for Paul Killian and Nicholas Litsky.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
And then, Mayor, we did make a motion, or I'll make a motion here to recommend the issue of a non-renewal of license to the neighborhood bar and set a possible hearing date on May 19th at the license committee meeting.
Second.
And Paul, I don't know if you want to fill people in on that, what exactly is going on.
Yes, thank you. The licensing committee was noticed this evening that there was a recent violation of the after-hours regulations at the neighborhood bar, that being at 3 a.m. Multiple persons were still found in the establishment in drinking. The complainant had indicated this had gone on for several nights. The owner was contacted the next day and was also requested to appear before the licensing committee this evening and did not appear. But there's 2 other violations within the last 12 months as well that would be the subject of any hearing. First of all, the establishment has changed its name from the licensed establishment name of the neighborhood bar. It is now signed as the Hood. And there were also violations of the health department code at the establishment that would be the subject of a hearing as well. And so the licensing committee did schedule it for a hearing, a potential hearing on May 19th to allow the license holder to be heard on the issue of renewal for the coming licensing year. Thank you.
Chief, did you have anything to add? Thank you.
And there was just also the issue of the change of the name.
Yes, exactly.
Of the
Yes.
bar.
All right, we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
And that's all from the license committee, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Action to be taken from the Finance Committee meeting held April 6, 2022.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to refund the recycling charge fees to Dolby's Restaurant for the 2020 and 2021.
Or is it 21 and 20? 2020, 2021.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the 2022 sewer rates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
And Mayor, we did deny the request for a refund for a snow removal charge.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
And Mayor, that is all from the Finance Committee, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Action to be taken from the bargaining committee meeting. Debbie, you're done?
The next year.
No, nothing? Okay, gotcha. Resolutions and ordinance. Ordinance to repeal and recreate section 17-18 of the City of St. Francis Code of Ordinances concerning the Beautification Committee.
Also move.
Second.
And basically, this is just bringing the number of the members down so that they can have a quorum. We had a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Discussion items with possible action. Consultant contract for South KK Engineering Design. Ein momento.
On Thursday, April 14th, 2022, I attended the meeting of the committee that approves the funding for projects to be funded in the fiscal year 2022, construction in 2023, with the bipartisan infrastructure law funds. I am excited and proud to announce that the South Kinnickinnic Avenue resurfacing project was approved at that meeting. The project is estimated at $1,042,300, and the city has been awarded 80%, or $833,840. This is a great savings for the city and the property owners along South Kinnickinnic Avenue from East Howard Avenue to East Lunham Avenue. As part of this project, a consultant needs to be retained to create the plans and specifications to the Wisconsin DOT standards by August 1st, 2022. Grave, R.A. Smith, and Rupert Milkey were all considered and could perform the work. However, Rupert Milkey has the ability to perform the work by the deadline. The cost is $32,458. I therefore recommend to retain Rupert Milkey for this project.
I'll move to place on file and approve.
Did you have a question, Steve?
I just have some questions on this here. I guess, is this road listed on the 5-year plan?
We amended the 5-year plan a couple meetings ago to include streets that would be eligible for this special funding.
And I guess is this the only road that we can use this funding, special funding for, or in the city? Can we use it somewhere else, or?
We have applied, there's 2 applications. There were what the DOT considered shovel-ready projects, and we had applied for KK through other funding mechanisms and were denied. So we applied for this first round of funding for KK. And then there's a second round of funding due on June 3rd, where we're applying for Pennsylvania Avenue, Boulevard west of Pennsylvania Avenue, Boulevard east of Pennsylvania Avenue.
I guess
Nicholson, and that it's a process where you apply, you send in an application, the committee reviews it, you get a score, and you're competing against every other community in the southeast region here. So it's project specific. We cannot use this money for other roads. It's not like the ARPA money where we were just given money. It's money that we compete for. So it's a different process.
And roads had to meet certain specifications, so we couldn't just take it off our 5-year plan and pick these 5 projects and fund it with this money.
It has to be a collector or a local arterial. and Canadian Connecticut in this section is considered a local arterial.
And the funding for this project is 80%?
Yes,
And what was the overall cost of that?
just over $1 million.
And then does that get special assessed back to all?
The 20% would get special assessed, just like St. Francis Avenue. The asphalt paving is the city's because it's a mill and overlay, and the special assessment would be the curb and gutter, the sidewalk, and the driveway approaches.
And Mark, how does this work? I mean, because this kind of like just came out of the blue, you know, with this project here. I understand that we got some funding here, but you know, is this supposed to be run through the committee or through the council here on this?
Go ahead, Mark. Or Paul.
Question for Paul.
I know we've got a lot of roads in this city that need to be repaired, and I was kind of surprised that this road here popped up. I mean, there's not a lot of traffic that use that section of the road there.
KK from Howard to Lanham is one of the busiest roads in the city.
It's South Canadian Connect from Howard to Lanham Avenue. It used to be Highway.
Right past Dobie's, right past Kingpins, right past Supreme Meats.
It's a fairly high traffic road. It actually used to be part of the connecting highway system.
You're on the wrong road. You're on the wrong road, Steve.
In the amendment to the 5-year plan was actually run through the Board of Public Works and recommended by the Board of Public Works to the common council to amend it.
So that would be the typical route that we've followed in the past, would be for the road to come up on the 5-year plan for a recommendation out of the Board of Public Works. It's funneled through the engineering department and presented for the council. So I think in the past where we have brought in a consulting engineer, that has been brought directly to the council for its consideration before proceeding with the project. So I think it's, you know, this would be consistent in that respect.
If I may, this bill funding, this infrastructure funding was basically announced at the beginning of the year. So it was after we had done our 5-year capital plan through our normal budgetary process. So that's why we had to amend and bring it through and try to come up with projects kind of in a very short time. So we beat out the city of Milwaukee for projects. So this is a pretty, it saves our capital budget. We only have to lay out 20% of the cost of the asphalt for the city, so it really saves on our capital budget. It also saves on the special assessments for the property owners. So I feel it's very important to bring back federal dollars to the city of St. Francis. We haven't used federal dollars like this since 2012 when we redid Packard Avenue. So this is hopefully a great thing that people value in the city. So, and we're going to try for more.
And as far as the bids came in?
The bids haven't come in on the project yet. The state will actually bid this project out for us and manage this project, and that's part of the cost that's calculated here. That's part of, we'll pick up 20% of their costs. So.
Do we have to have outside engineering do that, or is that something we're going to do, or the state's going to do it?
So we design it with our own engineer, but they will inspect it with their engineer, and that cost to that is included in the cost of the $1 million of the project. So we pick up 20% of that.
Here, if I may.
Right, that's part of the terms of the funding.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. Melinda, could you comment? I believe next week we have the CE is going to hear about concept plans for East Norwich Avenue at South KK. Is that?
It's at actually the southwest corner of KK and Howard, right next to the substation.
So would those potential plans be presented to the consulting engineer for any accommodations that might be needed, or is this strictly go in, you know?
The presentation to the CDA is the MSOE senior design students on a very conceptual basis of what the city could vision there, what kind of building, what could go in the building. It's really just a senior engineering project, It's not
Right.
plans that we would actually take forward. And part of the direction to the senior design students was there was only one access because of the DOT restriction on that property. So they have used the existing access that is there.
Okay. So would this, so let me expand my question then, if I may. So would this, how would the KK Corners development plan that was presented, and any plans to develop East Norwich, would they be accommodated in this project now, or is it just to facilitate the replacement as it currently exists, and then with the realization that in the future any development may require some geometric changes to the road development?
As the city has typically done, any road changes that are needed specifically for development are negotiated with the developer at the time. We have reserved enough right-of-way to create a dedicated right turn lane between Norwich and Howard, but we are not proposing to construct that as part of this project because it's not needed at this time, but it may be needed when the development comes forward. And so the city would negotiate that as part of the developer's agreement at that time. I mean, so the city's not including that as part of this project.
And I believe Debbie had a motion. So then we need a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Appointments to committees, commissions, and boards. Action concerning any currently outstanding appointments to the committees, commissions, and boards provided for under the City of St. Francis Code. Committee appointments, New Year organization. Everyone has the pages that I put by them. So we'll need a motion, please.
Also move to approve your appointments, Mayor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Correspondence with possible action or referral to committees, commissions, and boards.
The certification of municipal board of canvassers from the April 5th, 2022 election. You just need to be placed on.
Also move to place on file.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
Correspondence dated April 13th, 2022 from the city engineer regarding biostone wall repair proposals. Last year, the Common Council directed staff to find a solution to the fading names on the walls of the planter at the west rear entrance and the wall at the east rear entrance. Fred Rogers, building custodian, contacted several vendors in the area in fall 2021. Only 2 vendors responded, Art and Stone and Wenta Monument, the original vendor that made the blocks with the names. He's been working with both vendors over the winter to find solutions to this issue. Both vendors have provided the following options for the repairs. Art and Stone options. 1. Construct a double-sided solid granite wall on site that would have names on both sides. A foundation would need to be constructed by a separate contractor in addition to the wall. 2. Create new name blocks from granite pavers. All the existing blocks, faded name blocks on the planter and wall would be removed. The non-name blocks would be removed due to size differences in the thickness of the granite. Then, new non-name blocks of either stone or granite would be installed along with the new granite name blocks. Art and Stone will only do the engraving in this option. All the stone and or granite would have to be sourced and installed by another vendor. Wenta Monument options. Number 1. Construct name panels from one of 3 possible materials, granite, bronze, or aluminum, and install them on the existing wall at the rear east entrance. This wall may not be large enough, so some modifications may be needed to consolidate all the names on the 3 panels onto one wall. The panels would be attached to the existing wall by either removing all the existing blocks, attaching the panels, and installing new blocks around the panels, or furring out the existing wall and attaching the panels and new blocks over the existing wall. Option 2, create new individual name blocks with granite pavers, install them on the planter wall by one of the methods listed in the first Wenta option. Wenta will source the granite, perform the engraving, and do the installation of the It should be noted that neither vendor would construct any wall or foundation that may be needed in any of the options. Additionally, neither vendor would install the name blocks or panels or additional stone blocks surrounding the name blocks and panels. This means that a separate masonry contractor would need to be retained in addition to one of these vendors. We do not have costs from masonry contractors at this time since an option that has not been selected. However, in discussions with a local masonry contractor in the building, a wall or foundation could cost around $15,000, not including attaching any blocks to that wall. The same contractor indicated that to route out the existing name blocks and replace them would be about $6,000, provided that the granite name blocks are the same thickness as the existing name blocks. If not, then additional work would need to be done to make the granite name blocks fit into the spaces, which would be an additional cost. It also presumes that a granite color to complement the existing faded non-name blocks would be sourced. If this cannot be accomplished, then all the blocks, name and non-name, would need to be removed or replaced for aesthetic reasons, which will increase the cost. The following table shows the estimated cost from the vendors for the name stones. Art and Stone, option 1, $25,000, option 2, $5,000, and the note is you still need masonry contractor and additional materials. Went to Monumented, option 1, granite panels $9,600, bronze panels $29,000, or aluminum panels $7,200. Option 2, $4,900, and the note would still need masonry contractor and additional materials. There is not an obvious solution to this issue since painting the names every year is not an option due to the blocks not being the proper material for engraving names long term. Staff tried to hire a painter to perform this work in 2020 and could not find one qualified to do the work. There's approximately $13,500 left in the Stone account. Only one option might not exceed the amount left in the account, which would be went to Monument option 2, depending on the cost of the masonry contractor to remove and install the blocks, and depending on the specifications of the granite meeting the requirements listed above. All other options will definitely exceed the amount left in the account.
I'll move to place on file for discussion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I definitely believe this needs to be done. These options are quite a few, Melinda. I know to me it's kind of confusing. I can see Wenta, and I think we just have to hire someone to do the masonry and whatever and go with the granite, but to me there is no ifs, ands, or buts. This has to be done, and if it's over budget, we need to find the money from somewhere else. That's my opinion.
I happen to agree with Debbie. We've been spent money on that project, and it wasn't done correctly, so now it has to be redone. So I don't think that we ought to be looking at cheaper ways to have it done. I think we ought to just get it done, and we don't have to deal with it any longer. Because I think that if we're dealing with aluminum, we're going to have to be replacing that in the future, and I'm tired of that. We already replaced something.
So what is the best preferred option in this situation here?
I mean, to me, it does look confusing. I mean, I would think it would be the Wenta monument, and I don't know if Melinda agrees with the granite, and then having the masonry, and we have to hire those extra people.
This was a very confusing process for us as well because there wasn't a clear solution to this problem, and then there's a lot of solutions to the problem. So I think if I had to make a recommendation, and I specifically didn't because I don't have a real clear path, but I would think the option 2, where it went to supplies and engraved granite name blocks, and then we try to route out the old name blocks and put new ones in, would be the best solution. But again, that's going to depend on whether we can source a granite that's going to be complementary to the rest of the block that remains, because it's fading and some of the colors discoloring depending on what side of the planter you're on and the wall that's over by the fire department. So, I wish I had a better answer. I just really don't. But that seems like the most cost effective because it, in theory, would stay pretty much within the budget that's already here.
And truthfully, I'm not worried about that budget because this was something that was supposed to be done right. I'm sorry, I don't know how it got so messed up, but this to me is ridiculous that we have it looking like this for years. So if it goes out of the budget, then it goes out of the budget. And I'm sure I've worked here long enough, been part of this, that there's always some extra money somewhere that could be used to finance this and fix it for the people that wanted it the correct way. And we wanted it the correct way. The council at that time and everyone, this was a big deal, having this built, the Civic Center, and it was a big deal with committees and people that have passed away have their name on there. And it just needs to be done right. Not, I don't care if it goes out of budget. It needs to be done right and to look decently, the whole thing, not just pieces.
And that's why I think that it should be totally redone with the granite. I know it's expensive, but if we're going to be piecemealing something that's already falling apart, that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I agree with you, Don.
Well, and from personal experience, my father worked in this business for 20 years, monument, mausoleum. Contracting the granite is huge. If you have somebody that can find the granite, match the granite, and do that work for you, and do the engraving, we can find masons. Finding the granite is going to be a big challenge, and if you've got that in front of you, that's a huge obstacle taken care of.
So I don't know how we move from here. I guess, Mark, you have to give us some advice on how we move, but I do think we have to find the money to have it done correctly.
All right, we had a referral. Did we have a second? All in favor?
But I'm still trying to figure out, we
Gotcha.
place it on file.
Yeah, this was just a
Right,
discussion.
and then nothing else has been done, so,
You need an action item.
so now you need to add on to that motion to.
So can we add to the motion to have it done totally correctly, the whole entire wall with granite panels and hire the masons and whatever, I guess?
I would think it would have to be,
Separate motion.
well, I would think it would have to be, one of the choices and one of the options.
I know there's communication from the city engineer, but were these actual quotes or bids to do the work, or?
Yes.
Okay. So then I think it would be, the council's action would be to approve whatever quote or bid to do the work is appropriate. And the monies will come from the Buy a Stone Fund, and I guess we'll let the council know whether it comes out of the operating budget or whether it comes out of the capital budget to cover the balance at a later time when we know more.
So I would think that it would be maybe option one with the granite panels, if I'm looking at this right and understanding it right, and then the additional masonry contractor would have to be hired, that would be.
Let me clarify the granite panels. The granite panels are not like attached to the walls where they would be. We would have to we would see if we could put them all on the wall over by the fire department and redo that wall in granite. And we might have to expand it depending on how big the panels can be. So it is just like one big wall, and then the planter, we would have to figure out how to either just let the names fade or sandblast them or replace those block with other block. I mean, there'd have to be work done on the other wall.
So the other one would just be a planter, and everything else would be on one wall near the fire department.
Right. That's what option one with the granite panels for $9,600. And again, that doesn't include any of the work by a mason to do any of the block work, or if we have to expand the wall or anything like that. So, and then option two is just to redo the actual names and try to insert them into where the names are today within the existing block wall. That's what option one kind of is.
Wall, you could just build, instead of that block wall that we have there with the names on it?
So they can. That wasn't the quote that Wenta gave us though, because they felt coming in looking at the site that the 3 panels would be the more cost effective. Yeah, I mean, they are trying to be kind of considerate, but that would be the most cost effective. We could ask them for a quote to install the granite around the planter, but it will be more expensive. You, we those are all things we can do, and we kind of talked about it, and Nick has been helpful in some of that, but you kind of have to deconstruct the wall.
Right, well, the wall is deteriorating anyways. I mean, how are you gonna engrave out a block wall and put a piece of
The wall, and we're just going to talk specifically about the one by the fire department because it's the one I looked at the most. The wall is constructed of concrete masonry unit interior, so concrete block, cinder block, whatever you want to call it. And then it has the veneer, or in this case, a full thickness brick. It's the same exact brick and mortar that is on the exterior of this building. So to say that the wall is crumbling is kind of incorrect. Now, what is the correct statement is that the block that was selected and is very close to the block that is the exterior of the wall should never have been used for engraving. So when we say that it's crumbling, it's the engraving. Basically, we've scarred that block and now it's eroding. So what Melinda was trying to say is when you look at Wenta Monument Option 2, they would supply and engrave granite name blocks that could be keyed into that wall. So they wouldn't be, you're not bringing out a thing of paste or caulk and gluing it to this. It would actually be like if you had a crack in your basement wall where you would take out the mortar, pull that block out, and replace it with solid granite. So the footing on that, and I can speak for probably both of them, but the footing seems to be real good. It's not like we have any step cracking or anything like that. It's just that we had a material that, if it wasn't ever engraved, would probably still, it isn't good, because it's the same exact exterior of this building. As a matter of fact, it's very similar to what's behind you. It's just got a more rougher finish to it on the exterior. It's the block that we altered that never should have been altered. It was the wrong material to engrave. That's what's suffering. We see the paint coming off of it and the engraving is starting to chip or erode because we scarred it. So those individual name pieces can be pulled out. They can be cut out. I mean, it's surgical, and then they can be replaced with granite blocks to fit into the same size, the same block, and that's the same granite like Alderman Fire was talking about. It's monument granite, so it will far surpass all our lives. So, but also like Melinda was saying, if the city moved forward with the 3 panels, yes, it'd be beautiful to have one big panel. We have to remember we're in the most extreme conditions in Wisconsin, the freeze thaw. So we actually wouldn't want a large one panel like that because it would suffer a crack. I mean, it's just stress. That's why they have it broken down into multiple panels. So just like in a mausoleum, it looks like one solid wall. I mean, you're gonna, what's that? Yeah, there's joints in there for 2 reasons. One, to open the drawers, and 2, so that it doesn't crack. With that option, yeah, the either the whole wall or the one face of it, or however it would be, would need to be completely deconstructed. And if the materials or the granite needed something more substantial to anchor to, there might be, you might have to add onto that footing or like a brick ledge paved onto it and secured to it. So that's why there's a little bit more. That's why there's a little more cost associated with going with the 3 panels. So, in my personal opinion, whatever way the city goes, I would steer away from the bronze and aluminum panels, and I would just go with the monument granite. So.
Okay, so I get it right. I understand what you just said, Chief. But would we redo all the names, correct, Melinda? Because it would look dumb if there's one name there. There's a couple names that show, and then there's tons that don't. I mean, we would redo the whole planter, correct?
If you go with the individual bricks, then we're going to do every name around all the spots. It's not like you would do just one name, but it is going to be granite and then block and then granite and then block.
I'm okay with that. Don, how does that sound?
Is it also if you go up above the
Because you're just,
Why are we, we're just not gonna blank, granite, where it was gonna be blank, is gonna be stone?
it's, the proposal, second proposal is to just replace the stones with the names with a granite insert.
But according to what's written above, it also presumes granite color to complement existing faded no-name blocks would be sourced. So you wouldn't be replacing the no-name blocks?
Right, the blanks, there's blanks in that planter now, right?
Yes.
So
Right.
we would not be replacing those.
It's
Unless,
gonna
unless
look-
you guys, because the $4,900 is just to replace the names, the blocks with the names. That's all that is.
Understood, but if you replace the non-name blocks, you have the ability for future purchases to help offset some of this cost that you wouldn't have.
That is true. We didn't get a price for that.
And you wouldn't want to outsource that later because matching it later is going to be a nightmare.
Agreed, but we weren't asked to, it was very difficult to scope this project to begin with, so we asked just for the names, because that seems to be the issue that we need to solve right now. But we can ask for a price, for granite for the blanks, and,
What do you think, Melinda? I mean, blanks, is it like half and half? I mean,
Existing, I would say you're pretty close to a 60% engraved, 40% texture. And be it as may, we're not happy with the end product and the engraved. The contractor and installation did a pretty good job on balancing the engraved blocks from the textured blocks. I mean, there's a pretty good, it's not hodgepodge, it's not thrown together. So there's a good balance of it on both walls. The fire department wall, albeit nobody would probably want to be placed there, but there's a whole blank side of that wall facing our patio. There's not one engraved name on there whatsoever. But to answer, yes, I mean, you could get some more. The city could also have whomever gets the engraved name blocks also source us a dozen blank ones for future engraving if we wanted to worry about that. But like Melinda said, they went off of basically the scope of the project being to replace those who have paid for it. Those names are on there to get them replaced so they can be recognized.
I guess my only problem is I know I can't figure how this would look. I can understand what you're saying is I don't want it to look weird that there's old stuff mixed in with the pretty granite. I mean, is it gonna look okay if we leave the old mixed in? That's I'm worried about how it's gonna look for the whole, not just there, but I mean as you're walking in, that's everybody comes in from that side.
So short of looking like a mausoleum or a pet cemetery or something, it's actually you're gonna have two mixed mediums. You're gonna have granite. You're gonna have a textured concrete, and like I said, if names were just willy-nilly installed and look hodgepodge, but it's a good balance of the two. So I don't think it would. And if you look behind you, we have cream, we have butterscotch, we have caramel colors. If we can find, if they can source colors that would match that, and let's face it, granite's a natural product, so you're going to have variations, but that's what people aim for when they pick granite out. So I think with that said, and some careful layout of if we have things with darker in color, I think the mixed substrates would have an appealing look to them. And let's face it, we're all going to be looking at the names anyways.
Okay, I'm okay with that then. That what we just discussed.
I
Everybody else?
just might add, as long as whatever Melinda got a quote on is what the council's approving, that's what's the most important thing here. If you want something other, then you have to bring it back. So if you're approving the quote that Melinda or the engineering department got to replace the existing named concrete blocks with granite blocks, and you have a price for that, then that's what you would approve tonight.
I'm good with that.
Asking them to just redo the whole planter itself,
Well, they're not gonna redo the whole plan, or as Nick indicated, they will take out just the blocks that have the names on it, and they will insert them with a granite block with a name, with the same name inscribed on it. So you will have a mixture of the existing concrete blocks, like the existing building, and then granite blocks inset wherever there's names.
Why can't you just get, you know, the granite that they have them in the cemeteries there, it comes in different sizes, obviously. There's some that, you know, that are like.
Well,
That's a bigger piece.
as Nick indicated, it's very difficult to put a big piece of granite up without it cracking over time.
So it doesn't have to be that big, but if you got a piece that went from the floor up to the ledge there and you engrave lines to make it look like bricks, and then you engrave the names in there and you have these panels in there attached to the wall that's out there now, versus cutting out a brick and trying to put something in there.
We can ask them if they can do that, and we can bring you a price. It will be more than what is before you today.
So can we table this? Is that good, Ann? Is that to the next meeting, and then Melinda could get back?
But understand the construction is going to be, the brick that is on there, the block that is on there, as Nick alluded to, there's some textured block on there, like the outside of this building. So what's behind you is all flush, and that would be very easy to attach a panel of granite to. Both the wall and the planter have block that are textured, so they're not flat. So they are going to have to take off the capstone. They're going to have to fur that out or grind it off, and then they'll have to somehow build a ledge underneath to hold the granite at the bottom, and then attach it to that wall, and then put the capstone back on. So I don't know if it's more or less process, but it's probably a little more material and a little more time than replacing individual block. Not a problem, we just have to get the quote that you guys want. And
That's the way to fix that, you know, that's really
we've asked these two professionals, and this is what they come up with.
The other thing that might help, Melinda, is if they could give us some kind of a rendering of what it would look like so we can physically see how it would look with the two together. That might put people at ease as well.
Okay, we'll go back to both vendors and see if they can provide us with a quote for replacing all four walls of the planter and the entire wall over by the fire department in granite with the names engraved in like grid pattern to simulate blocks. That's what the council's asking for.
Okay, so either we could table this or place it under old business. What would be the best move?
You could just defer to the next meeting.
But so what I'm asking for is a rendering of what option 2 would look like.
Okay.
Okay.
And then we can bring back a rendering of a full replacement and a rendering of option 2 for Wenta. Okay. And I apologize.
It's very involved, and I think that's just why it's so hard to make a decision, because it is very involved. But we do want it to end up looking nice for the future.
And we are moving forward.
We are moving forward.
Fred has been talking to these vendors since September of last year, trying to get them to get us quotes and get vendors to quote us, and to just get them to come out and look at it took at least a month and a half to 2 months. So this has been but we will keep going and get you the information that you want. So thank you.
So do we need a new motion?
I think, if I understand correctly, it's to place it on file and to refer to the next common council meeting. Correct. Yes.
Can I get a second? I don't need a second on that.
There is a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
Correspondence dated April 14th, 2022, from the city engineer regarding DPW resignation and request to fill position. The city has received the resignation of Robert Edmonds. He is retiring on June 6th, 2022. He has been with the city for 21 years. I request authorization to begin the process to fill the future vacant position.
Move to place on file and concur with the request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
correspondence dated April 14th, 2022 from the library director regarding use of former City Hall green space. The St. Francis Public Library will celebrate 35 years of service to the community this summer. We are planning a series of activities to honor this anniversary. Our main birthday party will be an outdoor movie event. On July 20th, we will be showing 2 movies that originally came out in 1987. Our double feature will include a drive-in box movie event for the little ones and their families. Children will decorate boxes as cars that they can then sit in during the movie. The later movie will be an interactive movie event. The current plan is to show The Princess Bride with interactive prop kits being distributed to viewers. Once again, we are asking permission to use the old City Hall green space. We feel this will be more accessible and comfortable for families and will keep our parking lot available for cars. The event will from late afternoon until approximately 9 p.m. Again, the vendor and library staff will do any prep and cleanup, and participants will be asked to provide their own seating. Additionally, we would like permission to cover the sale sign in the lot with a banner to promote the event, preferably for at least the week leading up to the event. In the event of a weather event, Project Entertainment will work with us to find an alternate date, and we would notify the city of the new date. Thank you for considering this additional request. We hope to see you at some of our anniversary events this year.
Move to place on file and concur with the library director's request.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
You waited all night for that.
Unfinished business, none. Other business, none. Department heads, Melinda.
Thank you, Mayor. Winter won't quit. So yeah, on Monday it was frustrating, but at least it didn't stick to the pavement, so we didn't have to really plow or salt or anything. Our catch basin project is underway. Hunter, this is Hunter Lang, project engineer, the one I rave about all the time. He's heading up that.
Oh, nothing nice.
No, he's heading up that project, and they've started this week, so you'll see him out and about in the truck, managing that and keeping track on everybody. And then since we talked about college kids at the last Common Council meeting, we have 4 applicants. So thank you for all of you who reached out to your college-age students or friends of your children and got me some people. So I really appreciate that, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Chief Poplar.
I'll be brief. Just want to again thank everyone. I know I covered it at the last meeting, but thank citizens, electeds, department heads, every single person here for their help and assistance with the hunger clinic we hosted. Our paramedic unit, I know it delivered last time. The graphics will be done by the end of this week. And so that we'll get our small radio installed. We'll get it on the road pretty soon. We're gearing up for the fire academy, so we are sending four new firefighters through it. One of which being one of our first formalized interns who just was accepted to paramedic class today through MATC. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 officers that are new. One, Eric Armbruster, he is now in the shadow phase of his field training out of last 16 weeks. So after shadow phase, he'll be set free. So right now he's riding solo. So today was his first day. So he was pretty excited to be in a squad by himself, being able to make his own decisions. And he asked if I was going to be in at 8 o'clock in the morning so I could hear his first traffic stop for what? It's a new generation, I guess. But and then Officer Pekulik, Joseph Pekulik from Milwaukee MPD District 4, who was there for a little over 5 years. He's loving it here. He's just loving it. He's loving being able to do actual police work, seeing it from start to finish, and not just taking it, filing a report, and forgetting about it. So hopefully, if we do have openings in the future, he has some friends at MPD that we can bring over, tap into. And then we have some young officers that myself and Captain Blunt and informed that they had to speak to City Hall regarding this, and it kind of goes off of what Chief Poplar indicated as far as training and speaking with staff here. It's called Street Cop. It's probably the most sought after training in law enforcement across the country right now. It's kind of like what street crimes was to me back in the day. It's very eye opening. Especially after 5 years, you kind of hit a lull. And you kind of get a little relaxed out on the street, and it kind of slaps you in the back of the head and puts a lot of things in the front of your frontal lobe of your brain, where you kind of see things for what they are. But again, it's very sought after. It's extremely expensive. However, we sent all of our officers that have gone to at least one class. It's $295 per day to send these officers. We have Street Cop. We're going to be hosting it here August 1st, it looks like, and September 29th. We're looking to have between 50 and 100 students. For every 10 students, we get 1 free seat. So that means if we have 50, we'll get 5 free seats per class. So obviously looking forward to that. And we already made arrangements with Nextdoor as far as parking as well. And we, like Chief Poplar, will work extremely close with the city to make sure that everything's done smoothly and without any disruptions to city services. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Chief. Ann?
Were approved tonight. The bills will be calculated and sent to the printer tomorrow. Normally they're due the end of the month, but we'll give an extension to the end of May so that the residents would have time to pay their sewer bills. Because believe it or not, they've been calling and asking about it. There's the CDA meeting next week. Tuesday, the agenda has been posted and put out, and please note if you are attending that it is not at 6 p.m., it's at 7 p.m., so there's a change in time to accommodate the MSOE students, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Ann. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of items real quickly. I'm pleased to be participating in this year's Citizen Police Academy tomorrow night, speaking to the attendance with regard to municipal court procedures. And also, I wanted to give you an update with regard to hidden ponds. We are still waiting on the report from Elders, which is why it's not here before the council this evening. I do have a conference call scheduled with their attorney tomorrow morning to wrap up a few minor verbiage issues in the development agreement, and we are now shooting for May 3rd. And with that, I pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll reserve my comments for closed session.
Thank you. Debbie?
I just want to say thank you for everybody listening to my concerns about the bricks, including all the staff. Thank you. With that, I pass, Mayor.
Thank you. Sarah?
I'll pass, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you, Chiefs. Again, representing the city well. Hunter, nice to have you here. We hear good things. Projects you're doing in-house. Looking forward to more of those. It's a lot of money saved. Kudos to you and the engineering team. Nice to see you gentlemen again. Just a reminder, we are in high school spring sports. We get to see a really fun softball game tonight. St. Francis won 20-1 against conference player. And then boys baseball is going on. We also have track and soccer. I think that's it for spring sports. But cheer on your Mariners, cheer on Thomas More. It's fun to watch these kids play. They're doing it because they love the game, not because they're being paid millions. On that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Sean. Steve? Thank you. Don?
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say congratulations to Sean for being next council president. I thought that I was doing an adequate job, but apparently I was not. So I know you're going to tell me not to take it personal, but I find that hard to do. So with that, I pass.
Thank you, Don. I, too, would like to say thank you to the Chiefs. And Hunter, good to see a fresh face here. And Don, I'd personally like to say thank you for all your dedication, not only as a common council member, but as president of that common council for many years and many years that you had a tremendous burden on you. And I personally want to say thank you. And with that, we're going to be moving to closed session.
Adjourn. funds or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. And the item for discussion is the developer's agreement for 3700 on the lake. And it requires a roll call vote. So, but I need the motion first.
Also move.
Second. You have two.
Alderman Calderon.
Aye.
Aye.
Alderman Brickner. Aye. Alderman Waddell.
Aye.
Aye.
We'll be taking a 2-minute break and then meeting